Okay, so it's
Good evening, everyone. As promised previously, we in each major, let's say, assignment we are starting, we are doing this type of session, which are kind of walkthrough and question and answer to make sure we can help you at maximum so you overcome this learning curve faster, because there are so many new stuff in order to put together what we are doing in these 3 weeks. So the thing you have to put together is new technology, which is in memory computing. You have to continue with what is text analysis, because sentiment analysis includes what is text analysis plus another component. So you have the application subject, which is sentiment analysis, the new technology, and working all this in the cloud with are embedded in the cloud, not on your computer. And in addition to do this, you will have to learn how to work in the cloud environment and managing the available computing time, the available unit you are giving for these services, which are plenty to do the work if well managed. So just think about that. What you are going to have to manage here has to do with the same thing you do at your home. You don't open the door and put the air conditioning and 70 degrees in the summer, right? So it's the same thing. If you are going to cool the house, you close the windows, right? And if you are not going to continue washing your plant, you close the pipe, and all on and on and on. So it's exactly the same thing. And the biggest confusion is in the cloud is a little different. It's not that like you cross the button, you close the browser and gone. No, your service is open, and until you exit in the logical way from this service, the service continues to run in the cloud, even though in your computer from the browser where you accessed this service, the browser is closed. So that's why we are doing this session, and Elena is going to present the main pros thing to keep in mind in order to be successful with so many things to come together. And actually, this is the most challenging part of this course, for which I'm wishing everyone that start as early as possible so it can be completed successfully. With no more, I hope everybody read already most of the reading in the classroom. Is very important. So you complete the reading and you know what you're doing and why. Then you proceed to what is the sentiment analysis tutorial, which is an introduction to put together all these dots, and then you continue to the major assignment, which is gonna open after you submit the tutorial. So with no more, Elena, it's your turn.
Okay, so this is agenda, right? Okay, so this is basically, it's an in-memory computing, right? So we're gonna do the data is kept in RAM, right? And it's gonna get faster processing, right? And it really applicable to the situations where you need an extensive analysis. So it's better, faster, and stronger, right? Reduces cost. And some applications would be something like when you have the loyalty card for 5 million members, you have to process this in minutes, etc. Right? Smart meters, wireless providers, etc. So those are some of the applications here. And here's some of the challenges. Okay, that modern solutions require multiple data sets to fit in RAM, etc. Right? So this is just to give you the information. Okay, so what we're gonna use in here is a DB2. Well, it's also called DB2 on cloud. They keep on renaming this application. And you get up to 200 megabytes of data storage for free. You have a built-in analytics such as R for predictive modeling, etc. And you're gonna get some advanced DB2 processing, okay? And what's gonna happen, your data, it's actually gonna be stored in a DB2, and you're gonna be connecting to DB2, and you're gonna be analyzing data as well in R, not just in a SQL, right? So you are analyzing, you can analyze a large chunk of data, right, in a query. So let's go back. All right, so here are different analysis that you can do: the trend analysis, association between terms, decision tree, k-means clustering, hierarchical clustering, network of terms, and of course also the word clouds, right? It's limitless, right? So you can also, in general, you connect external applications to this. We're not gonna do this in this class, but you know that it's possible. All right, here this slide is on managing resources effectively. So when you're done working with R, you want to close the session properly. You also want to make sure that no runtime environment is running, because, well, what's gonna happen is that if you don't stop the environment as you should, it's gonna run for a couple more hours and it's gonna burn up more resources, all right? So you want to make sure that when you're done, you want to stop the environment, and you want to stop it correctly. Closing the tab does not stop it. You have to do the Q, right? This is how you exit RStudio. And then you also have to do this. You have to go to manage environmental runtime. And if you see anything running, you need to physically click on the arrow next to it, right, and stop it. Because otherwise it's gonna eat resources until it times out. But trust me, 50 hours per month, it's more than enough, because this is like what, a week and a half of a full-time job, right? So it's enough programming time for the R.
Elena, sorry for interrupting. Just want to point everyone. Elena went very far from very fast over the first 7 slides,
yeah.
because they are actually in a lecture in the classroom.
Right.
I just checked, we didn't miss this lecture. So this is already there, and you can review the lecture in memory computing, which is the 3rd one in the course content posted already. So that's why she passed very fast over this, but this is already explained in details in the classroom. So actually where we started today is in slide number 8.
Yes, because as I mentioned it to the other folks, I always say that this meeting have to supplement the reading. They don't have to replace the reading, right? So this is already discussed in a recording, right? So what we're doing now is to supplement, not repeat. Okay, makes sense? Okay, so here, this is a reminder that should not be new, because you already dealt with this when you did the Spark assignment, right? Didn't you? Yes, you did. Okay, this one, well, first of all, thanks goodness that they took out the other 2 environments. When I looked at it yesterday, when I looked at it today, there is only one environment for the RStudio. This is good news, because before they had 3, and if you select the wrong one, that's it. Because you can end up using 8 capacity unit per hour instead of 1. And then if you don't stop it correctly, you're burning 16 additional hours. So that was removed, thankfully. There is only one choice. Okay, excellent. Yes, and you do not upgrade anything. That's right. But what you do need to do is that you still need to get the code. Okay, you still need to get the code, because without the code, your account, without the feature code, right? Your account is going to be the light account. You don't have all plans available, and etc. You have to get the code. But yes, thanks goodness. I'm so glad that they removed the other 2 options. But still, you want to remain vigilant. You want to make sure that the option that is selected is the right one, because they removed it today, they can add it back tomorrow. You cannot freeze the version for the whole semester. It's not like the VDA systems that you used in data 610 maybe, where we have the Cognos Analytics installed and there are no updates during the semester, so to speak, the version is frozen, right? We cannot do it here, so just keep that in mind. Now I have the high-level steps in the process. You have a data set, right? You have a data source, and you have the description. What you're gonna do is you have the data, and you're gonna read the description. Then you need to load the data into the DB2, which I hope most of you already did for the tutorial, right? There are instructions on how to do it, and you need to follow. Then you're gonna check the logs. If there are any errors or warnings, there should not be. Secretly, if you're doing it right, there should not be. Okay, I resolve all of the issues with the files. Okay, then you need to take a screenshot of the load status. Make sure that your screenshot shows the start time and end time, right? This is important information. How many records were loaded, how many records were in the source files, record rejected, it should be 0, right? The target table name where it's loading, and the source. You want to make sure that shows on a screenshot, okay? Now, another thing is that you're gonna analyze it with SQL and you're gonna analyze it with R. You're gonna see that in a work environment too, where you have the stuff going in the database, right? And then you pull data in the application from database and analyze. And you're gonna interpret the findings, okay? So here is a long list of rules. Please, please, please do not submit any tickets to the IBM unless you're instructed to do so. Do not cancel your account. Do not update the RStudio version. And I don't recommend adding more than one instance of the DB2. Please don't install any packages. Check with the TA first because you can run into problems. Okay, then here, try not to open the application in multiple tabs because especially if it's R, you might end up using twice the capacity unit if you have it running more than one browser. Who knows what's happening? Avoid stop running the service. When the process is running, if you stop, you may end up going in a loop, so to speak, because to stop something, it starts another process. Okay, this one, it's a big one, okay? Somebody always does not follow this. SQL, please do not put it in a rich text document. Put it in a text editor such as Notepad works well, and yeah, something like a text editor, not rich format, because you get some weird characters that get introduced, and the code is really hard to fix. And trust me, I had a student who made this mistake, and they had to rewrite the code again. It could not be fixed. Example is Microsoft Word code, please don't do it. And avoid pressing the browser back button, you might end up losing the work. Then we don't exit the application by clicking on the X button, okay? Then you don't want to spend days on debugging an error, you need to reach out for help. As I mentioned in the last session, if there's an issue, we need to know it before the work is due. Because when you submit an assignment, we don't want to hear that there was a problem launching the service, perhaps, right? Like you had a problem with running the SQL query. We don't want to know it at the time when I submit an assignment or when you see the grade. You don't want to find out at the time, okay? Now, here, please download the file and don't open it because it's gonna corrupt the date formats, okay? Now, here, if you delete something, if you delete the service, right? If you delete the instance of the service, all your work is gonna be gone. All of your data, you have to reload it again. The SQL code, if you save the SQL code on a server and did not save the copy on your PC, you cannot recover it. So that's gonna be you. So please, please, please don't be very careful, okay? Unless we tell you to delete and service and re-add, sometimes it happens, right? So without us telling you that, don't do it. Okay, well, there are sometimes it happens when we have to do it, but you need to make sure that all your code is saved. please, when you save the code, save a copy on your local, on your computer, like me, like I have the code in here, the code that I was gonna run today. I have it on my desktop also. Okay, now so you want to save everything on your PC, as I said, and then because like suppose the system goes down on the night when assignment is due, well, you know, you have to what are you gonna do? If you have a copy of the code on your PCs, and you're good, right? Then another thing I want to stress it, ungraded exercises are required. And you will see why when you see assignment 3. I'm not gonna say anything more, but if something is, well, one thing I'm gonna say is that if something is ungraded today, you may see something similar to this graded tomorrow, okay? Ungraded is an opportunity to practice, but tomorrow there could be something graded and something similar. So please do all ungraded exercises, okay? And you may discuss them in a forum, that's fine for the ungraded. Again, you want to ask questions, you want to follow instructions, and you know, keep this in mind, okay? The way to get something done is to begin. You need to begin, then you get into it, okay? Now, this is the correct version, right? You want to choose a light plan, you don't want to choose a plan for which you're gonna pay, okay? Now, this should not be the case, but in general, your account, the student account, is limited to 10 services at a time. Well, I have it there because it depended on which part of semester we had this topic, but and at the moment, you should not have that many services. You should not have reached 10 limit, but just keep that in mind, okay? Now, here, this is an example. If something goes wrong, you're gonna see this error. Well, sometimes load details, you don't see the record rejected, but the load did not go right because you see the warnings. Something went wrong, okay? You might download the log and see the warnings. Well, I have it in there. It's just an example. It shows something went wrong because the number of columns that got generated does not match the number of columns in the data. See how it did? Well, secretly, some of the fields had bad characters. They had a new line characters. So it was treated as a new column. So that was removed for you. So that way you don't need to worry about cleaning the data. You just load it, okay? Now, this is just okay, suppose that something went wrong, right? And I can show you what you could do. So let's go back to the DB2. Okay, so what I did was I added the DB2 on cloud service before, right? So let me go back to the resource list. You add the service only once. You don't need to add the service multiple times. What you could do afterwards, there are multiple ways. You can go to the dashboard. Okay, you see that I have 4 copies of the services. Don't do this, please. Have only one. The reason I do it because sometimes the student reports a problem, and the problem could be on a specific host. As you know that there are multiple hosts, so that like me and your classmate, we may have our service on a different host. So sometimes my service is up, your service is down. Well, if your service is down, you need to specify which host you're on. Okay, so here it is. That's the one that I wanted to use. And I'm going to show you something. So you're gonna, first when you start, right? When you start, you're gonna do the credentials, right? Because this credential is what you use to access this application from R, okay? This is what you use to access from R. Now we're gonna go here, manage, we're gonna click on open console. Okay, that takes you to this URL. Then this one, okay, this is the schema, right? This is the table that I already loaded. Suppose that I did something stupid, something, and I want to undo it, right? If I did something that I did not want, right? There is a way to delete the table, to drop the table rather, okay? So if I want to do from scratch, I can go in here and I can select the drop, okay? and the drop option, it will remove this table and you start loading fresh. That's one way, okay? Or you can also do it programmatically, right? So see this, there's more than one way. You can do this here, drop, and you can see this tables, drop, right? That's another way. Then you can do it programmatically by running this command. Truncate. Well, truncate, it will not delete the table. What it will do is it will remove all data from the table and will reclaim the space, right, that was allocated for the table. It will not remove the table from the schema. It will remove all data. So just keep it in mind. But if you want to remove the table, you can do the drop command. Drop table and table name. That will remove, it's a programmatic way to delete the whole table, right? So if something didn't go right, you want to start all over, you have to remove the table. And you can do it through the GUI, or you can do it programmatically. I prefer that you know how to do it programmatically. It's my choice, okay? Now, suppose that you did a load, you loaded the data, and you forgot to take a screenshot. It's not the end of the world, because, well, what you're gonna do is this. See this? You're gonna go to the load, and over here you have the load history. Unless you deleted something from the history, it's going to be in here. So I can go in here, and I can I think I could click on this and it's gonna have the screenshots, date and time when I loaded the data, okay? So then it's very important, when I take a screenshot, I need to make sure that it shows the start time, sorry, and end time. Well, because every load is like this, you need to know how long it took, right? The time and where it was loaded from, where it was loaded to, and etc. Right? So this piece here, this is a schema, it's my username. You're gonna have a different, you're gonna have your username, right? So the screenshot shows that you didn't just grab the screenshot from my walkthrough, right? You didn't grab Yelena's screenshot. This is your screenshot, right? This one. And you did not post like screenshots that was done, something that was done by Linus, right? Perhaps. It has to be your username and it has to be your table, okay? And also the time here. It's very important, okay? Now let's go back. We're gonna do a lot of SQL today, by the way. So here it is. Well, okay, remember this, please. Every select statement must have select and from. So we have to specify what are we selecting and where is selecting it from, okay? Select is a comma limited list of columns, but the column that is being selected, it does not necessarily have to be a physical column in a table. It can be a calculation, right? Like for example, if I have a first name and last name, I can select the concatenated first name and last name, right? And I can do something like a first name space and then the last name. I can create it sort of like a calculated field, right? So it doesn't have to be a straight selected from the table. It could be derived from multiple fields, right? From is you specify either the table name or it could be sort of like a subquery, will cover the subqueries, or it could be another query that returns the result, right? It can get goes in the from clause. Where condition is filter the rows, right? So you pull the rows that matches specified condition. For instance, I want people who live in a specific location, right? Group by is how you do, sometimes you want to do the counts, right? But you want to count it by grouping. For example, I want to see the number of people in each data 650 session. So I'm grouping by session, right? I want to see the average grade for assignment 1 in session 9040, right? By session. So here you're grouping by the session and by the assignment, right? So that's a group by. Having is going to select the groups. Suppose that I have multiple session of data 650, and I want to say that I want to pull the sessions where average grade for assignment 1 is above 90%, right? So here, I'm not filtering out the individual students. What I'm doing here is that I'm calculating the average grade per session, right? And I'm filtering the session, so I'm filtering the group. That's what it is, okay? So this is what I'm trying to tell you, that the difference between where and having a lot of students, it's confusing for a lot of students. So where filters the rows, okay? Having filters the group. Now, the spelling, the way you spell the table names must match the spelling in the database, and so does for the column names. Because if you misspell something, it's not going to know what table you're referencing, right? So here, this is the first query that I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and run it. I prefer doing the hands-on this part. So I'm going to go to run SQL. And what I did was I saved the script, but please don't count on it. You want to have a local copy of the script too. But there are multiple ways to run this. I'm gonna do, you can run selected or you can run all, right? I'm gonna do run selected, and I'm gonna run this one. So, well, this is what the first query does. Select, what am I selecting? I'm doing user time zone. I'm gonna list the airline sentiment and airline, right? Here, this is an where clause where I want to list people who live in a specific location, right? I want to leave the, specific time zone. This is the in because here I'm specifying the list, right? So far, so good. Now I'm gonna make it harder. I want to order by airline, and you can add the second condition where retweet count is greater than 1. So here, this is an example of the query with multiple conditions. You can do that, right? So here is a retweet count. Then how do I test it? Well, to test it, you can kind of like look through. If I see something like where retweet count is 1, is my query working as expected? Of course not. Or if I see something who is from Eastern time zone, is my query working as expected? No, right? So you need to make sure that you learn how to test. Now we're gonna get to the group by, and I want to make sure that I go with the slides also, because here I have some notes for you. So this is a slide, oops, not sure what's going on. I have to go forward. Okay, here, this is a group by. Basically, well, what's going on here is that you want to list the airline and you want to list the number of times each airline is mentioned, right? So that's another word. Number of tweets is the number of times each airline is mentioned in a airline column, right? So let's run it. And also I want to sort it, right? Well, yes, I want to sort it too. So let's go this. Let's go run selected. Let's see what's happening. Okay. Well, I want to sort it ascending. Okay. Well, I want to sort it by the count in here. Okay. So take a look at this. Why is it grouped by airline? It's because I'm interested to see the numbers per airline, right? So airline is my grouping column. It goes in a group by clause. And here I want to do the count, right? Because I want to do the number of times the airline is mentioned, right? Now here, this is a simpler example where I want just to do, I want to list airline, I want to list the sentiment, and I want to do the number of mentions. This is a simpler example because what you'll see later on is going to be more difficult, where I want to have a separate column for positive mentions, for negative mentions, and for the neutral. We'll get to it. But for right now, see, we have to make it difficult a step at a time. So for right now, this is what I'm producing. At the moment, I'm producing just this, okay? So here, look, we have two columns that we're grouping on. We're grouping on airline and we're grouping on airline sentiment, right? I have two grouping fields in here, airline and airline sentiment, okay? any column, any grouping column that is in here, any non-aggregate column that's in here must appear in the group by clause, right? So here, basically, column 1 is the airline. Column 2 is an airline sentiment. Column 3 is number of posts, right? Number of mentions of an airline in column 1 with a sentiment in column 2, right? So we are grouping by 2 columns. That's what we're doing here. That's it, right? Now, so this is basically how you group by 2 columns. Remember, you had ungraded exercise in a Spark tutorial assignment where you had to do the SQL. Ungraded exercise was grouping by 2 columns. So that's going to be back in the house, right? This is back here, okay? So whatever is ungraded may come back as graded. Okay, so this is a case statement. Okay, so I have it in a slightly different order in a script, but take a look at this. In the query above, what you did is this: you did something like airline, then you did the sentiment and number of tweets, right? Now I'm asking you to do something similar for the time zone, but I don't want to see one line for sentiment and count. I don't want to see it like this. Instead, I want to see the time zone, first column. Second column, I want to see the sentiment. And here, well, I'll show you. Our ultimate goal is to produce something like this. Our ultimate goal is to produce something like this. In the first column, I want to see the time zone. Here, I want to see the positive count of positive mentions. Second column, third column, count of negative mentions or neutral net mentions. Third column, negative, and then the last column, total. I want to see it like this, okay? This is what I want to produce. In your ungraded exercise, you ask to produce this count by the airline, right? But today, what's ungraded today will be graded tomorrow, okay? Okay, so basically, you saw something similar in an ungraded exercise for the Spark tutorial, where you were asked to produce first column department name, second column how many employees left, the third column how many employees remain, and the fourth column how many employees total, right? In that case, if the employee left, right, it was the value in a column was 1. And what you did is to count how many people left, you took the sum, right? You had a column where the value was set to 1 if the employee left. And all you did was just took the sum. Right now in here, we don't have something like that, right? So then how are we going to build this table where I have the time zone and I want to have it, first column, I want to see the positive, next column negative, or neutral, right? Then I want to see negative, then I want to see total. I want to produce something like this. So basically, what I need to do is this first step. Let's think about it. Let's break it down. So I have a time zone, right? And I want to add 3 columns here like this. So positive, neutral, negative. Think of it this way. If the sentiment is a neutral, right? I want to set neutral to 1. I have 3 columns, 3 flags here, right? What is that? What is doing? Time zone, the sentiment, if it's neutral, I have a 1 in the second column, right? If it's positive, I have a 1 in the first column. If it's negative, I have a 1 in the third column. So I'm producing something like this, right? So that's what it does. The case statements, that's what they do. And in here, I'm taking a sum, see? So this is an intermediate step. This is an intermediate step. I sort of like showing you. And here, what I'm doing is nothing but taking a sum. So that's what it's gonna do. I don't need to do any joins, okay? You have case statements like this, okay? You can have case statements. So basically the column does not have to be straight, the column from the table, it can be calculated. So what I'm doing is that I'm creating it's artificial column, so it's positive, right? If it's positive, then it's a 1. If it's not, then it's a 0, right? And then I'm taking the sum, and it's just gonna give you this nice table here, right? It's like this. You just do sum, and here you put the case statements inside. Well, you could use decode statement if you wanted to. You could use decode, but the problem is decode is not gonna work on all platforms, such as HANA. Well, it's a pain I had to deal with recently. So case statement works on most of the platforms. So I recommend using case, okay? And then here, if you do just the count, right, it's gonna give you the total. This one, it just count by the time zone. Or in an exercise, ungraded exercise, you ask to produce this table by the airline. So I want to see airline, then I want to see positive, neutral, negative, and total, right? So that's a reasonable request in the industry, you're gonna see it. And in here, I did something else because there are too many rows returned. I want to limit, I want to see only the time zones that have at least, that have more than 50 total, right? I want to see more than 50. So it's all the way down here. I put these two queries. So this one, run selected. So this one basically set the stage for that one. I'm just trying to show you how is it based on, right? This is a testing, so that you have to test. And now this is the actual one, run selected. Okay, so now you think you're done. Think about it. How are you going to test your numbers? Well, first of all, you know that positive, neutral, and negative are the only values that could happen, right? You want to make sure that the numbers in these three columns add up to the number in the last column, right? You want to make sure that, because if you don't see that, then something wrong in your query, okay? Now, another thing is that when you take this count, you want to count, well, there is a difference between count star or count specific field, because if you put count star, it's going to count the rows where the time zone is blank. You're going to see the rows where time zone is blank, okay? But if you do it like this, then it's going to exclude the blanks, okay? So it matters. You want to put it like this, okay? Now, since here, you know, the output is huge, I wanted to just see the total count greater than 50, okay? You saw something like that in the ungraded exercise for the Spark tutorial. So this is gonna be your second opportunity to practice complex query. And please, please, please do it. You're not gonna regret doing it, but you might regret not doing it. Okay, now, next thing is we're gonna do the subqueries. And basically, what is a subquery? It's a query inside another query, right? There are three types of subquery. It can return one value, it can return the list, or it can return the virtual table. Here, the subquery, you can put it in a select, from, where, and have enclosed. Nothing else. You cannot put it in a group by. You cannot put it in an order by. If you think you can, I would like to see how you do it. I would like to see the working code if you think you can do it, okay? So if the query returns one value, more likely it's going to be in a where and having. If it returns a list, it could also be in a where and having, okay? But if it returns a virtual table, which you'll see in example, it can be in a from closed. Okay, so the example here is a bit more complex. So let's start from an easier example. And I'm gonna go to the code. Oops, here it is. I'm gonna go back up. So the idea, so we did that. Okay. In here, here is this. I want to look at the, oops, I thought I had it. This is more complex, right? Here. I want to look at the airline sentiment that have a maximum number of retweets, right? I want to get the post, I want to see the post that have the highest number of retweets. The problem here is that I don't know what the maximum number of retweets is. I cannot say select star from blah, 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 where retweet count equals 100 or where it equals 1000 because I don't know what it is, right? One way to do that would be to run this query over here that gets the maximum number of retweets, which is 44, and then go in and substitute it in here, 44, right? Well, the problem is I don't want to do it every time I run my script, right? I don't want to substitute a number. Instead, what I want to do it is that in a parenthesis, I'm going to put a subquery that returns that number for me, right? So I'm just going to run this, right? And here, I'm just going to get the posts that have the 44 retweets. Probably there is one. But, well, look, in terms of, instead of running this, every time I need to run this query, I can put a subquery, which means it will just grab the data automatically for me. I don't need to run it at all times. Now, this is a harder example because in here, well, actually, not really, because here I can have two conditions, right? I want to do this, and also sometimes I want to eliminate. I want to see only the tweets that have only 6 retweets, right? So this is basically, I can add conditions to it, okay? Here I can add conditions to it. But the example that you see on slides, well, the reason it's a bit more complex because, well, it's in a having clause. What I'm doing here is that I'm trying to calculate the average confidence, right? Confidence is one of the columns, and I want to do it for the negative reason, right? I want to do that, well, rather here, what I want to do is I want to calculate the average negative confidence. But here, I'm looking at the negative reason. I want to pick the negative reasons that have an average confidence above average. So here, I'm making a comparison in a having clause because what I'm doing basically is that behind the scene, I'm calculating the confidence for each reason. And I'm filtering out the reasons that don't meet this criteria, right? In this query, I specified the specific criteria. I could go ahead and run the subquery manually and then plug it in, but it's not efficient, right? So that's the whole purpose of subquery, right? So just keep that in mind. I want to make it more efficient. And in here, what it's doing, it's taking the airlines, right? And for each airlines, it's going to give you the delimited list of reasons. So basically, you have a list of complaints for airline, and you want to get a list of complaints that each airline has. So that's what it's basically doing. Let me see. Let me run this thing first. Okay. Okay, I'll have to see what's going on because this query worked before today. I have to see. It worked when I run it today. Okay. Okay, I have to see what's going on. Oh, I see what's going on. Because when I selected, I did not select letter S. Okay. I need to make sure that I select the whole thing. There we go. Now it worked. Okay, so what I want to see here is the delimited list of the reasons. Like, for example, this is an airline, this is a location. And here, if it had more than one reason, more than one complaint, I want to see it like this, delimited. For example, data airline at this location, it had 2 complaints. See this? Customer flight and something else. Okay. See this, customer service and something else. Flight delay, maybe, yes. So it had 2 complaints, and I want to see the delimited list like this, right? But to do that, see this is a subquery where I pull the distinct list of the reasons for airline and location, and this one is doing concatenation, okay? This one is doing the concatenation. And this is just the syntax, okay? And you're grouping by the airline, group within the airline, yes. location. See, you kind of like making this list. Okay. Now, this is the example that we looked at, right? So I hope, guys, it makes sense to you, right? Those are the advanced queries. Now, here, this is what you're gonna get. You might get if you misspelled it. Well, here is an example of an error the student make. Do you see this? The tweet ID, but the actual column name is tweet underscore ID. So if you make this typo, you're gonna get an error. So again, you have to make sure that the spelling of the column names in the query matches the spelling of the column names in your table. You want to make sure that the table name matches the table name that actually in a database, okay? Because if it's misspelled, then your query is going to fail, okay? Now, here, sometimes, yes, this is an undefined name. This is what happens when you misspell the table name, okay? Like in here, I missed the underscore. And this is an error that I'm gonna get if I miss the underscore, all right? Sometimes, well, by default, sometimes the query does not show. The results that are shown are not the whole set, right? Sometimes the results are huge and you only see the subset. So you might be wondering how many rows the query return. So you can do this. You can do select count star and put your query inside. So this will give you the number of rows that this specific query returns. Okay, that's one way to check programmatically how many rows your query returns. Is this, you put select count star and inside you put the query that you want to check, okay? This will work, but the assumption is that the query that you are checking is working, okay? Now, well, this is the R part. I hope it makes sense, but look, in here, if you go back to the service thing, see this is the credentials part. And this is my credential. Your service will have your credentials. And in fact, if you ever have to, if you end up going that way, if you end up deleting the service and re-adding the service, the credentials are going to be different and the username is going to be different. So this username in here is the same as your schema name, right? And this password is a password that you need to put in a SQL, in a R code, sorry, in the R code. And the host name. Another thing when you need the host name is that when you're reporting a problem, please specify the host name because there are several hosts. Sometimes one host is down while other hosts are up and running, and a student reports problem I'm not reproducing, maybe because my service is on a different host, you know. So here it is. This is host $09 and node 11, right? 11 could be up perhaps, but 10 could be down. And if you have a service on node 10, you know, there is no way for me to know that we're looking at different nodes unless you tell me this host name, okay? Now, another thing is here. So this is how to do that, right? Also, every time when you log in, you have to rerun the whole code because, well, you need to make sure that you establish the connection with the database, right? In order to run a query, your database connection must be open. So if it has been a while and you're trying to reload the data again, and maybe your database connection is closed, so you need to rerun this to establish the connection. See, those are the variables such as driver, database, hostname, port, etc. Right? And this is you're defining the connection path, right? And this one in here creates the connection object, and either init it's gonna start the connection with the database. Many times you're gonna see something like this, okay? Where you have to pull data from the database and do analysis. You open the connection, You get the data, and in theory, you would probably close it. But here, I'm not doing it. But if you were doing it for the production environment, you would have to close it when you're not using it, okay? All right, so now, this is an error that you will get if you put the wrong password, okay? So please make sure the password is correct. Okay, so you may plan, what is this? To cover this, but do we need to start the DB2 session when connected to R? No, you don't need to start. You don't need to, well, okay, in order to connect to R, you need to have the DB2 service on your account, but you don't necessarily need to launch the application to work on this. No, you don't need to launch the application. In fact, there have been times when the application is down, but the database is still up. There were times when, you couldn't launch the console, but you can still log in from R and do the work while the console is out. So no, you don't need to, because, well, what's going on is that when you log into console, it's an application layer that sits on top of the database, right? Console is an application, but your account, it's in the database, right? So you don't have to be logged in to the console to work in R. At the same time, your service, your account must exist, your data must be loaded. Otherwise, you cannot do this. But well, no, you don't. The database, well, that's a good question. The database is already running. You don't need to start the database. What you need to do is just to hook up the connection. The database is already started. It's a big database, not just your account. It's already started for you. You don't need to do anything to start the database. All you need to do is to connect to database and pull the data. Like, you see that you're establishing the connection. Then you pull in the data by running the query, right? I don't know if I'm answering the question.
Yeah, just visualize the database as an instance that's sitting on the cloud, and all you're doing is basically connecting to that instance. So that instance is always available.
Yes.
As long as you have the connection credentials correct, you'll be able to connect to that database.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but yes. So DB2 does not take capacity unit hours. Don't worry about that. But the DB2 is already running for us. It's active unless it goes down. If it goes down, sometimes it happens. There are maintenance windows. Once in a while, they do maintenance windows and I have to put an important patch. Then we're gonna know about it. But we have no control over it. IBM runs it. What you need to do is you need to connect and grab the data. There is no, DB2 does not use capacity hours, okay? So that database is already started for you. You need to connect, okay? No problem. Okay. DB was not active. What do you mean DB was not active? I'm trying to see, because you were not connected to the database. You probably were not connected. You need to establish the connection. That's what we're doing. We are creating the connection object because the database is there, but somehow we need to create a channel to communicate with the database, right? How do we pull data from the database in application? We need to establish the channel through which we communicate, okay? Oh, excellent, yes. No. This is very important concept. You're gonna see it. Even if you, no matter what you end up doing it, even if you're a web developer, even if you are, doing analysis like R, the data is gonna be stored somewhere, right? You have to connect to it and then do the analysis, right? So I think SQL is very important. And not just if you do SQL, any application development, you need to know how to pull data from the database, how to connect to the database, how to close the connection. So, all right. So if you see this error, you have to make sure that the password is correct. And of course, passwords are case sensitive. We know that, right? All right. Okay, so those are some helpful queries. This is a command you may run within in R, right? This one, either show tables This will show you the tables that you have in your schema, in your database schema, but of course you have to be connected. And suppose that you have many tables and you know that your table starts with air. You can search for tables that start with this string. Then you can check if the table exists, right? And this one is idadf command. This is how you read and load data. Well, this one right here, it just will output the data. You can run your queries like this. So if you're under the crunch time, and if for some unknown reason, application console would not load, right? Application layer is down, you could still continue working. Well, I know that R takes resources, but at least you have some work you can do for the assignment 3, right? Because assignment 3 is huge. So please trust me, you want to get more time on assignment 3 is to finish the sentiment analysis tutorial earlier. So that's going to be a win-win situation. If you finish it, submit it, you get this. And also remember the quiz. You have to do the quiz, 70%, okay? You have to take that quiz and do the 70%. It's important too, because how you're going to do the assignment if you don't review the vocabulary, right? Okay, so here, this is how you do the query. And in an assignment, you have these queries, something like that. You see the table metadata. I'm showing you here that you can also run these queries from R. So my connection here, this is a connection object, right? You define the connection object, and then this one, the command that runs the query, you pass the connection object, and you also pass the query that you want to run. And here, what I try to do, I try to a little bit format it, so that way it's a bit easier to read, right? So basically, there is a sys table that stores the information about the tables, such as a table name, who created it, and even more about the storage, etc. Information that we're not asking you to look at, but still you want to check the columns, right? These columns, you want to check the columns, make sure the columns have correct data types, you've got the correct columns, etc. Because you're not going to have the interface all the time. You need to know how to do things programmatically. So that's the reason we gave you this. All right, you need to explain, well, how do you know that your data is loaded as expected? You want to make sure that it's done first before you do the analysis, right? All right, so this sometimes you may get an error returned by either query command. So you want to make sure that the syntax is valid, but to check your syntax, you can run the query in a GB2. You can try that. I mean, at least that's what I would do. If I can't get something to work, you have to fix the query. Like in here as an example, there is a syntax error in the query, and I'm trying to do something, and the query is not returning as expected. So then I will have to go back and check my query. Okay, that's what I'm saying. You have to go back and check your query. There is more than one way to do it. People work differently. Well, I prefer taking a query and going straight into database, because there you can look up your column names, and also you're not using the resource. You're not using the hours, right? Because R contributes to that hours. RStudio takes hours, DB2 does not. Okay. Well, here, this is an issue. I'll tell you why. You're gonna be loading multiple packages in here, right? Some packages that you're gonna use, they have methods with the same name. For example, there is an RRules package for the association rule, and it has a function inspect that allows you to output the rules. Then there is a text mining package, right? TM package. It has the function inspect that allows you to output the inspect the document, right? The documents. To print the document's content, that would inspect us. So you have two packages in memory with a function with the same name. R is going to be confused, right? Which ones are you calling? Which function are you calling? So to solve it, you need to qualify the function name with the package name. Like for example, here it means that I want to call inspect function from a rules package. I don't want to call inspect function from the text mining package, right? So trust me, you're going to run into this problem. When you run into this problem, you want to do you want to remember that you have the same function, right? You could have the same function in multiple packages, and it's not just the inspect. There will be more, okay? But actually, in fact, when you load the second package in memory, if you have a rules in memories, and when you load another package that has the function with the same name in memory, you're gonna get a warning. The system will tell you a warning, okay? Because you have to qualify it with a name. Now, if you're like me, if you like images, okay, you have to be careful here, because every time when you do visualization, until you delete it, it saves, and it's gonna take up the disk space. So if you see it in a yellow zone, you may want to go back, and you may want to check the visualizations that you have in the plots. You know how in the plots you can scroll through plots. If there is something that you don't need, delete, or please save copies to your hard drive, right? Take a screenshot and save it, because when you do what I did before, at some point I had a lot of plots. Then if you get to the red zone, your RStudio, you might not be able to launch it. So, well, let's say it this way. Here you're fine, but as long as you go to the yellow zone, please check this. First of all, you want to make sure that you clean up from environment what you don't use, because things like the matrices, they may take a lot of space. So anything that you don't use, you want to clear that from memory. Then also you want to clear the visualizations, and those are in the plots, because the plots are actually stored and they take up space, right? So promise me, if you're gonna log in, when you log in, you're gonna check this, and if it's yellow, you want to go and start fixing it, okay? Because you don't want it to be red. I've seen people when their RStudio was not loading, then it's a problem, okay? Now, well, here I just listed some of the R commands that you may find useful. So library is gonna list the packages that are installed, and this one, search, is going to show you which packages are in memory, which packages are available, right? Because package could be installed, but it's not available until it's in memory. Here, this command will clear the console window. It's the same thing as Control L. Here, this one will remove all variables from the memory. And C, this one, this is called combine command. It will produce the list, okay? So this you may remember it from data 630. So I'll just edit it. And I guess this is how to show environment. I mean, I'm repeating things, I understand, but we don't want anybody to do, okay? And so this is the current ones, right? You want to check this. And here is an example, you have something running. So I better go here, click on this dot and stop it if I don't use it, okay? Because later there will be a big problem. I'll burn the hours, right? If you don't use it, you want to stop it, okay? Make sense? I repeated few things multiple times, but there is a good reason. We had sometimes doing something wrong, one thing wrong. You know, some people who had to repeat the class, it's because they did something silly to their account, okay? Like run out of hours and cannot do the work anymore. And why did they run out of hours? It's because they chose the incorrect plan and they left the service running, right? They didn't listen. So here you have to listen to what we tell you, because it's plenty of hours. So you have RStudio loaded on a personal, no, guys. From previous class, guys, please, no. We're not doing the work on the computer because that defeats the purpose of this assignment. We want to use the cloud environment because the goal of this assignment is to show the goal of this assignment is a memory process, and you want to use the server version of RStudio, and also the packages that are installed on the server are not the same that are in your computer. Right now, desktop version is higher than the version that is in a cloud. And also, when you're asked to submit the script, the faculty, your instructor, is going to take the script and put it in a RStudio in a cloud environment to verify. So please leave the credentials, everything in a script, because the instructor would have to, I'm talking about assignment 3, the instructor would need to have a way to validate the work, because in any class you take where you write the code, you submit the code, and the grader validates the work, right? To make sure that it's something that you did it, right? And it's gonna be the same for the Kaggle competition that you're doing. At the end, you're gonna send the code to Linesh and he's gonna validate it, right? Same thing on assignment 3, your instructor, it has to validate the code that you submit, right? He will have to log into his account, take your script and run it. Okay, so please make sure that it runs on a cloud RStudio. And please leave credentials in, because this is a valid API call. So if I have the credentials, right? If I have the credentials in the code, I can run your script from my IBM Cloud account. So anyways, please leave the code as if, well, basically what instructor should be able to do is take a script and run it, okay? The work must be reproducible, and the output that generates the code must match the output that you're discussing in the paper, because it's not just a discussion, it's a discussion of your results, right? So the results that you discuss have to match the results that the code returns when instructor validates the work. So please. No, we're not connecting to the DB2 from the PC. We are using the cloud for this assignment. This is very important. And please do not see this 50 hours as a limitation. It's not, it's a privilege. You got 50 hours for the cloud use, okay? And it's not like it's not like you're limited to 50 hours. It's you got 50 hours. It's a privilege, it's not a limitation. And trust me, if you spend working on R, just the R, for 50 hours in here, oh, you're gonna get the gold medal probably. Trust me, you're gonna be a champion or whatever. You're not gonna spend 50 hours working on R part of the assignment 3 and assignment tutorial combined. Trust me. That's not gonna, if it's taking you 50 hours to write the R script, then maybe the time is not used effectively. You want to make sure to check with the TA instructor to see what's going on, right? To make sure that you're using the time effectively, right? Have you done ungraded exercises? Well, in this case, ungraded exercises is SQL, but have you done the walkthrough, etc., right? Have you read the materials? You know. So what? Underestimate your ability. Yeah, right. Well, some of you probably, I'm sure that there are people sometimes, there are students who also propose a solution. Sometimes TA learns from student solutions as well. So nobody knows 100%, you know. But no, because sometimes you might be working with, well, some of you might be working with R, or some of you might be working with Python. Like in my case, I'm working with SQL, so that's my strongest area. But no, not a problem. And another thing is that you get the code for the sentiment analysis tutorial. When you write the code for the assignment 3, please make sure, do not clone the code. Do not directly take the code from the tutorial and plug it in. No, because the instructor will be checking that too, because you need to make sure that you add something unique to it. You don't just copy the code and run on your data. Well, there is such a thing as a code reuse. You reuse the code, but you have to adapt the code to your data. See what I'm saying? Like, for example, you're trying to maybe display intent association rules for the airline sentiment data works well. But then if you're running it on another data set, maybe based on the specified parameters, only one rule is returned, and you cannot use the same parameters. You have to adjust it based on your data, right? Things like that. And you want to do something that is not done in a tutorial. So like if you do a network of terms analysis, right? Please read that, do that reading, and you see this this picture over here, right? The picture here, this is a network of terms analysis. It was identifying the subsets of terms, okay? Here you're identifying the subsets of terms. This is a little bit beyond what is done in the tutorial, but it discussed in readings. There are examples. So you can go a little bit beyond, like which terms appear together. Or if you're doing clustering, you can do the, do you remember from data 630, the elbow method? Something like that, right? To identify the optimal, okay? You can do this, right? So if you don't want to just copy, if you don't want to just clone everything that is in that's given to you, because that's a B, right? If you want an A, you want to do more. If you want to aim for a higher grade, you have to do more. Because if you just copy what's given and just run it and just very basic, well, don't just 2 words of advice, good luck.
Yeah, but just a word of caution, like when you're trying to, extend this code to, you are using something, maybe to go beyond and do something additional, don't load some fancy packages that may not work in your RStudio environment very well, or that may not load very well. So you may get stuck with something that could be fancy out there, right? So just limit yourself. I mean, it's good to extend, but just ensure that the package that you're going to be working with is could be installed and could be used, and everything is clean.
Yes, exactly. And this package is in there for the social network. This package is there. Yes, it is there. But like if I'm doing something in a red color, you don't necessarily have to do it in a red color. You can do green color. Well, something like that. You don't want to do exactly what what I'm doing right now. You don't want to do exactly what the way it's in the works are done. You want to well, see, there is a sort of like like Lenish is excellent point, Lenish. There should be like a boundary line, like going beyond also means going beyond an analysis. Like if you chose to do the association rules, you want to talk about the metrics in your paper, right? Well, going beyond means, well, you maybe look at different parameter, or well, look in the regions, look at doing something like this, right? The package is already there. It might be like extra line of code, But before you do something really fancy, you want to make sure you have the basics working. Of course, first you want to make sure the basic stuff works, right? Because that's a B. But then if you want to earn more than a B, read the course syllabus, what you need to do. And it also, instructor is going to look at the quality of your writing, right? That's probably the common sense, but I mean, as a former student, I can tell you, it's a quality of writing. You don't want to have spelling errors here, everywhere, all over the place, because that undermines the paper. Spelling errors undermine the quality of the paper, okay? So, well, things like that, yeah. Then references, you want to cite the reference that you use according to blah, 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 something like that. But we don't write papers by copy paste paragraphs from the web. Somebody asked me something like that. What it was a question in session 9040. Somebody asked, what is original work? Well, it means that it complies the UMGC has a policy on academic integrity. We need to follow that policy. So we don't write papers by copy and paste paragraphs from the web, right? We have to paraphrase and cite as described by that policy. Okay, remember, everybody signed the integrity pledge, so that's what it means, right? Okay, well, I answered it because there was a question somewhere in the discussion board, what it means by original. Original means not doing copy paste paragraphs from the web and not submitting another student's work, not using any of the illegal help. Well, It's a lot. Go ahead and review the graduate writing standards, please. Then you will get better idea. But well, I'm just telling you what not to do because well, I've been a TA for about like what 11.5 years, and I've seen this is one reason people don't succeed, because they write papers by copy paste paragraphs from the web. So this is a problem. Please don't do it. Don't do it. Am I right? Nersh?
Yep,
Am I right?
absolutely. Just a couple of things, guys. I mean, this is an excellent opportunity for folks who've been wanting to learn SQL or use SQL. So if you really want to extend, I mean, just try different SQLs. You know, don't just stick to only graded, ungraded SQLs or exercises. Think as an analyst. Like think as you want to do some more analysis on the tweets and what are the different SQLs that you would have to create to get to that analysis, right? So this is an excellent opportunity to do that and extend yourself. Secondly, while you're working with SQL, you may find that it is not case sensitive, but once you get into R, think about all the rules of R, right? The package names and all those could be case sensitive. So when you're switching between these two environments, keep that in mind, because I've seen a lot of errors or people get into or spending a lot of time on issues where it could be as simple as just using the right cases, whether it's uppercase or lowercase. So keep that in mind when you are switching between these environments.
Yeah, that's right. And don't spend time on something. If you're spending a lot of time on something, first of all, you want to make sure that this is important, right? And sometimes, well, some students would say like, oh, I spent so much time, I worked so hard. But the question is, was the time spent effectively? How did you just jump into an assignment, or did you do the reading? Because jumping right into assignment without doing a reading, it means the time is not spent effectively. So if you spend like 40 hours this way, it's not effective. So we want to make sure that it's not just the effort, it's how you use time and result, okay? It's a result. It takes effort to get result, but it's a result. Your instructor will evaluate you on result, not on effort, but on result, okay? It does not matter if it takes you 5 hours, then it takes you 5 hours. If it takes somebody 10 hours, then it takes 10 hours. Well, we're just average, But the thing is, you need to consider if you're using time effectively, right? Have you read have you done the readings? Did you do the walkthrough? Did you do the quiz? Those things, right? So just do yourself a favor, make sure that you do the readings, and make sure you watch this recording. You may have to watch it again, okay? Yeah. Let's see, questions?
Yeah, I don't see any questions on the chat room.
Maybe Elena has something to add to what we said, if she's still here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Yes, I just want to say the following. I don't know if everyone is aware that they have to obtain the code and apply the code to the account in order to be able to do the assignment. So we should have started with this, but I assume this was always overdue in the previous week, so I didn't point. So I just remember that is very important, very, very important.
Yes, IBM Cloud Code. Now let's see if we have questions. When is assignments due? Excellent question. So Candy, look, right now, let me see. Not look at the calendar here. Okay, well, we are here right now, right?
So yeah, on the 14th is the tutorial due, and the assignment is the 21st.
Yes, but if you submit the tutorial early, you have more time for the assignment.
Which we highly recommend.
Yes. Because this one is, well, this one, the data set will be provided to you, okay? And yes, I want to tell this, for people who are retaking this course for any reason, please make sure that you download the latest version of instructions and the data set, because what we do in this semester, the data set is different from what we did last semester. And please do not take the text of the tweets and that data set personally. Okay, promise us that you're not gonna take the content of the tweets personally in there, okay? And yes, make sure to download the new data and the new assignment. You cannot submit your work from past semester for this one because it's a different data set, okay? I'm just telling you that, okay? Because, well, sometimes some students, maybe they repeat in the class, but maybe they did a great job on assignment 3 perhaps, and they want to reuse the work. I'm gonna say no this time because it's a different data set. Then you're gonna get, not gonna get credit because you're working with the wrong data set. So you have to download the data set and start from scratch, okay?
I don't see more question in the chat. I guess people need to work more, but of course we have the discussion forum in the classroom and everyone will be able to ask questions. And I think this was just good session because we spent an hour and a half almost. So this was plenty of time. I think it's enough time to concentrate. And if there is no more question, we will be ending this.
Professor Elena and Yelena, I would like to also say something.
Yeah, go ahead, yes.
Yelena, first of all, thank you very much for this session. It's really very useful. For the folks in the classroom, I would like to suggest that please, when you're submitting your screenshots, make sure that it's so very clear and you submit both your code and your results. And when you're explaining your results or responding to questions, please just don't give just simple answers. Make sure you look at from different perspectives. You also make some critical analysis so that it's also benefit to you and you can also get higher grades from the assignments. Also for this, as Professor Gorcheva said, that this sentiment analysis tutorial is very important for the assignment 3. Make sure you understand very well so that you can feel much more comfortable for the assignment 3. Yes, Yelena.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, good session. Thank you.
I think then I don't see more questions. It's just thank you. I think everyone needs some rest right now, and nice evening to everyone. Enjoy the evening and get back to work when you are more rested. Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.